And we have over the phone the international relations expert, Dr. Dr. Monica William. Dr. Monica, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening to you too. First of all, we have seen the developments taking place over the past 2 days in the region, in the Middle East. We have seen the response of Egypt through President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati. How would you sum up the situation nowadays between Iran, Israel and the United States, as well as the response of Egypt?
Of course, as you mentioned exactly, there is a lot of escalation, and in light of military political complexity following especially the assassination of Ali al-Khamenei and the escalation of U.S.-Israel strikes, the safest option for Iran doesn't mean an ideal scenario, but at least costly paths that preserve state survival and prevent internal collapse. The relatively tougher options can be summarized as follows. First, consolidate the domestic front before any external escalation. And the most immediate threat to Iran, not the strike or military strike itself only, but the potential erosion of internal legitimacy under wartime economic pressure. Therefore, the state's priority is rapid resolution of essential services, stabilize the currency, and secure strategic goods to prevent social unrest. And of course, the second one is the adapting strategy of deterrence. Instead of open escalations, and it can be talked through indirect tools, cyber operation, limited maritime pressure, and precise low-intensity strikes. And the third one, if we can talk, it's to separate the military track from the nuclear track. It's not an Iran interest to link military with overt nuclear acceleration, which could push Washington and Israel, of course. And as you say, that there is a lot of escalation regarding yesterday and 2 days, of course, the current phase of between states, United States and Israel on one side and Iran on the other, reflects strategic transition from direct military engagement to strategic economic pressure. The shift indicates a growing awareness among all parties that a full-scale war in region wouldn't remain geographic contained. Rather, it would rapidly evolve into a global economic crisis. As you see yesterday, there are a lot of countries that become part of this escalation.
Dr. Monica, we have seen today the statements of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi regarding the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the negative impacts that could be resulting from such a move by Iran, especially regarding the prices of fuel and the prices of commodities in general. How do you see the impact of such a step on the global economy and the political affairs of each country, the security and stability of each country as well, specifically Egypt and the region?
Of course, there is a lot of very consequences regarding the strength of Hormuz matters. The strength is one of the most critical energy choke points in the world. Significant percentage of global oil and liquid natural gas, approximately 20 exports pass through it daily, and so any disruption would spike global energy prices. I guess it would be reach $100 for 1 barrel, and disrupt supply chain, increase inflation worldwide, and strengthen maritime security. For Egypt, the impact is direct and serious, of course, and for the Gulf countries. So Egypt's interest is closely tied to stability of the region and to global trade routes and energy market balance and maritime security. So if Hormuz in supplies, oil prices rise, increasing economic pressure, and oil importing countries. So Egypt's strategic assessment in this regard is very important and very relative and very describe what will be happen if this approach, so Egypt's approach as reflected in President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's speech is based on avoiding regional war, protect freedom of navigation, encourage diplomatic containment, and supporting negotiated settlement over military expansion.
Yes, but one important statement by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for today was for the Egyptians to stand united against the conflicts that we have seen in the region for the past, not just for the past 2 years, but for the past 6 years, ever since 2020, with the COVID-19 pandemic, with the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, the aggression by the Israeli occupation forces against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, and finally, the conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran nowadays. How do you see the endurance of the Egyptians, according to the statements of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and what does this say about us, about the fabric of the Egyptians?
Of course, President Fattah al-Sisi has repeatedly spoken about the growing complexity and uncertainty, if we can see, of international conflicts, particularly, as you mentioned exactly, the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the war in Gaza following the 2023 Israeli and Hamas war, rising tensions involving Iran and the regional escalation risks. Actually, the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi tried to frame the challenges, which is still valid and still continuing interconnected crisis, as we see that the highlighted that these weren't isolated events. They overlap economically and politically, and of course socially and affecting food security, energy prices, and global stability. And we tackle with Russia-Ukraine war, which disrupts the global grain supplies, directly impacting countries like Egypt, which rely on import energy markets instability. So it's very important. On the other side, as a war risk expanding into broader regional conflicts. And the core message in this regard, Egypt still remain united and resilient despite global escalation, while advocate the escalation instead of expansion and protection of civilians, and of course strength regional stability.
Yes, and we have seen recent statements by the Iranian side for the past couple of hours saying that a return to the negotiations is on the table. It could be within the cards of Iran nowadays, alongside the war that is going on in parallel. How do you see such a statement? Do you think that this could be done as soon as possible to be ending the war?
Of course, this solution, if we try to tackle with this part of or scenario, it's a very is likely to be, or the question of Iran return to negotiation is not simply diplomatic, it's a strategic. It's possible, but only under specific conditions, as we see that yesterday and today is very important geopolitical challenges in this regard: military escalation, rescue regime stability, economic pressure, as we see, strategy unsustainable. So what would Iran want in return? If Iran want to return to talks, it's likely prioritize the gradual sanctuary recognition of its regional influence and security and the pursuit of its nuclear infrastructure. And of course there is a lot of U.S. and its partner Israeli a stronger nuclear transparency and inspection limit on uranium levels and restraint on the missile development, disclosure of its proxy activities in the region. So the gap between deterrence logic in Iran and the containment logic or adopted by U.S. and Israel makes negotiation very complex and from a purely analytical wise, returning to negotiation could prevent, of course, a broader regional war, reduce the risk of direct conflict, and stabilize global energy markets, give all sides political space domestically.
Dr. Monica William, the international relations expert, thank you very much for being with us tonight on Nile TV International. And this brings us to the end of this special edition. Thank you for watching and goodbye.